We are here to look at the causes of the American Revolutionary War. There were many things leading up to the war that caused the colonists to want to break away from Great Britain. So let's have a look. What were the causes of the war that led to the American Revolution? Well, first of all, the cost of the French and Indian War was high for Great Britain. They'd spent a lot of money and expended a lot of troops in North America, and they felt it was quite fitting to raise money in the colonies by levying several kinds of taxes. So the British Parliament passed several acts to raise those tax monies from the colonists. The first one was the Sugar Act, passed in 1764. This placed a tax on all sugar and molasses going into the colonies. Of course, the colonists were not happy about that because they did use a lot of sugar in baking and particularly in tea. The Stamp Act placed large amounts of tax on paper products such as pamphlets, leaflets, legal documents, newspapers, and even playing cards. The colonists were not happy about paying such tax. The Townshend Act saw taxes being placed on things such as glass, paint, lead, and tea. And then in 1773, there was a special tax placed on tea that was coming into the colonies. And of course, this upset the colonists even further. But in addition to paying many, many taxes, the colonists also felt that their rights were being taken away, that their voice was not being heard, that they were not being represented in British Parliament, and so these taxes were unfair. Of course, lots of money was raised from the taxes, and the colonists began to resent Great Britain even more. They were not happy at all. In New York in 1765, people boycotted many of the British products. And in 1765 as well, a lot of the prominent people in the colonies got together and formed their own Congress as a reaction to the Stamp Act. And they called themselves the Stamp Act Congress to protest in more of a legal way and to draw up some legal documents to send to England saying that they were unhappy with these new acts that were being passed in the colonies. Then in 1768, a group was formed, sort of an underground covert operation called the Sons of Liberty, that also took action against the British, and in particular the British military. The Sons of Liberty were willing to go to any expense to show the British that they were indeed unhappy with what was going on in the colonies, and that eventually they should actually leave. Of course, in 1773 in the Boston Harbor, the colonists also protested and showed their unhappiness by dumping 3 boatloads of tea into the British harbor. The British didn't stand by and take this. They also reacted to the unrest that was going on in the colonies. Excuse me, in 1766, they quickly passed the Declaratory Act, saying that basically whatever we say goes. We can pass any act, any law, according to our wishes, because they are our colonies. Then, of course, in 1770, tensions were growing and fears were mounting, and a scuffle occurred, and 5 colonists were dead. This also outraged the colonists and began to really raise the thoughts of departure from Great Britain. In 1774, Britain passed the Coercive Acts. These acts were very coercive and demanded high expectations upon the colonists, almost to the point of being intolerable. Yes, they were called the Intolerable Acts in the colonies. So with all of these things going on, a war was eventually fought that would change the world. and we know it today as the Revolutionary War. It was a revolution. It was a drastic departure from the things that were to things that would now be in a brand new way. And that war would cost a lot of lives, it would cost a lot of money, but it began to form a new nation that we call the United States of America.